Hello, everyone. Hi, and welcome to Alta Live. My name is Beth Spotswood. I am Alta's digital editor, and I am really quite excited to welcome you all today to Alta Live's conversation with one of our contributors, Chris Colin, about this extraordinary article he wrote in Alta about the Silver Crest Donut Shop. It's this kind of beautiful article called San Francisco's 24-hour diner stops the cosmic clock, or we never close. In fact, this diner, which if you've been in San Francisco and driven down Bayshore Boulevard, you have passed. It has been open and running without ever closing for more than 50 years. Chris, in this article, spent over the course of months time getting to know, understand, kind of become a part of this incredible San Francisco spot that so many of us zoom past without getting to know. So that's what we're going to talk with him about today. A very little bit about Chris because he is so humble. His work has appeared in addition to Alta in the Best American Science and Nature Writing. He produces the Longer Tables podcast with Jose Andres, and I'm super happy to welcome him here today. But before I let him start talking about the Silver Crest, I want to tell you about Alta. If you are unfamiliar with Alta, we are an award-winning quarterly magazine focused on California and the West. Our gorgeous and gigantic magazine is available for $50 a year, makes an incredible gift. The holidays are upon us. Please give everyone on your list this year Alta. We also have a Bookstores of the West book, like a physical book that we made. You can buy it on the Alta store. Ask your local bookshop if they carry it. It's fantastic. We also have a list included in the current issue of 126 titles written by Alta contributing authors or California Book Club guests. So we have a lot going on in terms of ways you can support us. Subscribe to the magazine, join us as a digital member for just $3 a month, buy our book, buy our clothes. We've got fun swag for sale online. Just attend California Book Club or Alta Live events. Both of those are free, or check us out at altaonline.com. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to ask your questions for Chris and share your stories of the Silver Crest Diner if you have any. This interview will be recorded and posted to altaonline.com later this afternoon. We're also going to post links to Chris's work and anything else that happens to pop up today. It is always awesome to see where you are zooming in from in the chat, so please do let us know. Hi from South City, Karen. I am in Novato, California. Chris, where are you today?
I'm in San Francisco. I'm about half a mile from the Silver Crest.
Okay, so explain to me, and for those that haven't read the article, I must admit that I've probably read the piece all the way through in one sitting about 5 times now. And each time I feel that I not only kind of like feel or experience something new, but I fall a little bit more in love with the whole essence that you create, the story that you're telling about this diner. Can you tell me the first time you went into the Silver Crest and what is your connection to this random diner on Bayshore Boulevard?
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying there are a lot of quirky diners out there that are overflowing with character and characters inside. So the first thing I had to do was figure out why this place felt different. And I think I started figuring that out the first time I went in, which was probably about 20 years ago. I was living in the Mission. If you're in the city, at some point you're going to drive down Bayshore Boulevard. And when you do, you are going to see this gaudy red building. I mean, there are so many coats of this thick red paint. It feels like the paint is holding the thing up. And hanging over the building is this ancient neon sign that says, "We never close." It's not the only 24-hour establishment in San Francisco, but it's the only one like it that really, like, actually literally never closes. And I started going in there just to see what was going on and realized that it's one thing for a McDonald's to stay open 24 hours. It's another for a married couple to do this for half a century. He working nights, she working days. So very quickly I realized this is not just a diner with character. It's a place where this marriage was happening in shifts. It's a place where locals have been coming in since the 70s, and they still come in every day. It's a whole nother universe in there. So I got sort of addicted.
And how did you end up pitching this to, I presume Blaze Zariga, our editorial director, you pitched it to Blaze, and how did you convince him to let you really kind of profile the diner as if it's a character of San Francisco, a person of the city, a touchstone of the city. How did you sell it?
Yeah, no, I think it is a touchstone of the city, and I think part of the appeal um, is that the city is changing so quickly, and we're losing all these wonderful places, and it's always a heartbreak when you find out that the whatever down the street just shuttered after 30 years. I mean, I think we've all lost however many places like that just in the last few years. We all know that heartbreak. So I think part of the appeal was probably just like, let's catch one of these things before it's gone, for God's sake. But I think the other part of the story that I'm guessing spoke to Blaze is that it's not just about the Silver Crest Diner. It became clear to me the more time I spent in there that it's a reprieve from something larger happening in San Francisco, in California, in the world. I was feeling like living in America in 2023 was pretty nutty, not just for all the obvious reasons like our democracy teetering and the climate teetering, but just on a day-to-day basis, life just feels so odd to me. I mean, I learned that Velveeta makes a nail polish.
You mentioned
Culture
that.
is so, yeah, the culture, pop culture, just daily life, everything. I just think the pace of change in our city and in our country right now is kind of dizzying. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like a lot of people have a similar dizziness. And so I step into this diner and I realize it's a rock in the stream. It hasn't changed a bit in 50 years, and it became clear that it's a handy place to sort of sit and make sense of the outside world, even as you're sort of focusing on what's happening inside the diner. So it was a window onto itself. It's a story about itself, but it's also a window onto the world that's speeding by outside.
How did you, so once you decided, and I don't want to, there's no spoilers in this, but if you haven't yet read this article, please do. At one point, kind of early on, you mentioned that you stop in the diner 20 years ago, you kind of discover that it's awesome, and then life takes off, you get married, you have kids, but you, for this article, kind of like recommit to, okay, I'm going to spend a few months really getting to know the different times of day, the characters, the people. Can you tell us about that process? How you, I know what was your initial plan?
Yeah, when I pitched it, I was going to go and spend 24 hours straight there and really take them up on their pledge. Um, and in the end, I sort of decided that was a little gimmicky. Um, it was also hard. It's hard to do that. Um, but it was mainly, I started going at all different hours, and I realized, you might not catch the interesting thing that happens on another 24-hour cycle. So instead of doing it all in 24 hours in one go, I spread it out over many months. And as a result, I did see some pretty wild stuff. Sometimes early in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the day, sometimes at 3 in the morning, but always sort of overseen by the same central crew, which is George, who's the husband. He goes by Pop. Nina, his wife, and this new kid who's been working there, their niece Pam, who's been there a mere 3 decades. And then
Amir,
Bristow, the cook.
how did they feel about your focus on the Silver Crest and your kind of new regularity there?
Totally indifferent. Didn't
Really?
give a crap about me. No, that was part of what was refreshing to me as a writer is, I get pitches from PR folks every day about some new restaurant concept. and understandably, because it's so hard to be a restaurant right now. It's cooking food for people has never been a great way to get rich, but nowadays it's just nigh on impossible to make a living in the restaurant business. So there's a lot of eagerness to have press write about it. And then I go into the Silver Crest, and they didn't give a shit. They did not want, they were not opposed to me writing about them, but they're from another place and time. And, you know, I don't know, they were just indifferent. And I found that very lovely.
But they answer your questions. I mean, you
Sorta. I mean, it's interesting. I think I say in the piece, there's a kind of omerta that hangs over the place. They answer questions to a point, and it's a very chatty place. But you can't just go in as a nosy journalist and start, querying people about, the meaning of this or when this happened, or asking for specifics. That's not really the vibe there. You have to put in a few months and establish that you're like an okay person, and not, if you're over eager there, I think that doesn't play so well. I think they just want, it's their living room. This has been their living room for 50 plus years, and you wouldn't want an annoying person in your living room. So, I think that was, if I had to guess at their feelings, it's that they just want to have a place where you can chat, where you can eat your eggs, where you can read the paper, whatever it is your deal is, and you don't have some annoying dude in the corner with a notepad. So I had to sort of change the pace and approach of my reporting.
what's the clientele like? What are the other diners and patrons like? I noticed that some did not offer their photographed. Carolyn Fong, we should give a shout out to her for her beautiful photography in this. But some are, there's like Ronnie G. I mean, some people are not giving their full names. How is it connecting with the patrons?
I would say that the clientele skews older, but not exclusively, especially late at night. You have people who wander in after a late night concert, or after they finish their shift at another restaurant. But in general, especially during the day, it tends to be a little older, largely because these are people who discovered it in the 70s, and they've been coming ever since. And you see regulars who are basically continuing the same conversation they've been having for decades. So yeah, it's a little droll in there, if a vibe can be droll. There's a kind of funniness, and then there's just long periods of silence. It shouldn't be as calm as it is. I mean, it's on a pretty gnarly stretch of Bayshore. You have all kinds of it's littered out there. There's a lot of sort of down and out folks who are wandering by. There's a fair amount of crime. You would think it would not be pleasant, but you step inside, and then the swing doors close behind you, and there's some kind of disruption in the space-time continuum, and it's just peaceful and mellow and sedate, and you can just sit there with your thoughts. I think that was part of what was striking to me, is I got to hear my thoughts for what felt like the first time in years. The pace is just so slow there.
Why do you think that is, particularly in a city like San Francisco? And you mentioned kind of, I forget what the specifics were of over the time that the Silver Crest has been open, that, not only has there been the AIDS epidemic and 9/11 and the pandemic, which they never closed even during the shutdown, but really incredible events in San Francisco, like the which I think the anniversary was yesterday or the day before, the assassination of Harvey Milk and George Moscone, the Zodiac killer, stuff like the '89 earthquake. I mean, extraordinary local events. How has the Silver Crest not only survived all of this in a way that so few other places have, but the places that have are like the Taddich Grill, or kind of more higher end Sam's, what have you. This is a real kind of salt of the earth diner out on Bayshore. How is it hung on through all of the changes that San Francisco specifically has experienced in the past half century.
Yeah, no, that is always, one of your top three questions when you see the places. How are they still here? It's got to be a front for something. Everyone wonders that. Uh, I guarantee it's not. I can tell you that hanging on is a lot harder than it used to be. When they got there, San Francisco was a different place. It was a working class neighborhood, and there were factories that were open round the clock. So they were always spewing out their workers who would wander over and have a nice meal and shoot pool, and it was like a super lively place when Bayshore was lively. Factories moved out, fast food moved in. Hanging out there will make you real anti-fast food, by the way. That's really been sort of the nail in the coffin of a lot of places like this. Yeah, so I mean, at one point they had 20 employees, which is just wild to imagine.
When was that?
70s, mid
And how
70s.
many employees do they have now?
Well, they have the two owners, George and Nina, the husband and wife, and they have their niece, Pam, and then they have Augusto, the cook.
So wait, who cooks when Augusto's sleeping?
George. He also
Jeez.
makes the donuts. He's in his 80s and he makes the donuts every day. They're big. They're big donuts.
But that's, I mean, 24 hours a day. That's
Yeah.
it, 4 people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, George, as I say in the piece, when I first started going in, I would see him standing. So the front of the place is a diner, and in the back, he converted in the 70s this old sort of storage room into a bar. And now it's a windowless, charming backroom bar that also feels like a living room. And I would go in the early days, and he would be standing up sort of suspiciously still behind the bar with his eyes closed. And, what I had always heard is that he learned to sleep on his feet early on, and then he could very sort of seamlessly open his eyes and be ready to go with your shot of ouzo.
Lisa asks in the Q&A, can you tell us about the food and the prices? Because actually listening to this, it does make me think that you can get a sandwich for a nickel in this kind of place.
You can't get a sandwich for a nickel. I'm sorry. That did change. It's not, I don't know. It's sort of standard, maybe low end of standard for diner food in terms of price. All right, I'm going to tell you that you should go in there for the breakfast. No reservations. It's a delicious breakfast. You get your eggs. They have really good bacon. It's surprising. You wouldn't guess that you would get good bacon at this place, but a lot of the regulars confirmed this is like the best place in town for bacon.
Okay. What do
So
we?
yeah,
What do you think like liverwurst sandwiches? Or maybe you mentioned that was removed from the menu when people
liverwurst finally was erased from the menu. Yeah, some of the old stuff is gone, but yeah, it's there's some oldie timey things on the menu too. I've had the burger. Mostly I was in there having coffee, or I was having drinks with George in the back late at night, and he's a big ouzo pourer. I would say that you can't go wrong with a burger. I really
how
think
much is a burger? A burger, it's not crazy. It's not a $24 burger. It's not a San
man,
Francisco
it's like
burger.
$12. I can't remember.
Okay.
Comes with fries. But you also have to sort of make peace with the place. I say in the story, you could do worse than to age like the Silver Crest, just like full acceptance. The Coke, they don't have Coke anymore. They have Sprite.
Right. If you order a soda, you get Sprite.
Yeah. 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 You just accept it.
There is no gluten-free options. There
are no options whatsoever. You take what you're gonna get. But yeah, I'm gonna say that breakfast is your best bet there, or drinks.
Lisa, take note. Breakfast and alcohol. I'm curious. You mentioned I think at one point attempted robbery. And I know that Bayshore can be a sketchy stretch of town at times. Did George have any stories to share with you other than what you mentioned in the piece of what's gone down at the Silver Crest?
Well, this is, I talk about the place having sort of a cosmic energy, and I think this is one component of that, is that they don't get, I mean, the door, it's a swinging door that hasn't locked in 50 years, right on the sidewalk of this pretty rugged part of Bayshore. You would think they'd be getting knocked over day and night. And I asked a lot of people about this, and everyone said the same thing, which is that George has a way about him. And it started back in the 70s. He's firm, but he's kind. I see him give out food discreetly to people who need food when they come in. But he's also not like a pushover. There's a story in the piece about how someone tried to rob the place, and George came out with his own gun and shot the guy. He's okay. It actually has a surprisingly happy ending, like an extra happy ending. Not all shooting stories do, but yeah, he's tough but loving, and there's just something about his cosmic energy that apparently drapes a force field over the place.
You with this cosmic, there's a time warp in this particular spot of San Francisco. Do you think, Chris Colin, that there is some universal magic happening in this moment that is a time travel machine, a la, I don't know, Back to the Future? I mean, is this San Francisco's DeLorean that will take us back to 1975?
I hope so, Beth. I hope so. I'm not a scientist, but I hope so.
I don't think that was a very scientific question. Do you worry that writing about it might alter this mellow and unique atmosphere? And now people are asking, like, what's the parking like?
Oh, parking. Good question. There is free parking. I think that's part of the appeal, is that you can just drive up and they own a little bit of real estate where you can park very easily. So that's nice. That's really nice. And I think, by the way, and this is only a rumor, I couldn't get them to confirm this, but the land, they own a little bit of real estate that includes the parking, but I think what I've heard is that they also own the land that a billboard sticks out of, and there's a Domino's pizza. So if they're getting money from the billboard people and the Domino's people, that might explain how they're keeping the lights on. I don't know. It's only
you didn't look at the books.
Didn't look at the books. I sort of decided I really tried to go like all reporter on the situation, and then it started to feel like the wrong move. And so I decided to just sort of accept the mystery, that the mystery of the place was more sparked more joy than knowing the answers.
So to answer Lisa's question, do you worry that writing about it?
Oh yeah, right, that question. I always worry. Yeah, I always worry that writing about a special place is going to kill the specialness. And so ever since the piece has come out, I've been going by and just seeing, and I think a few people have started to come in, is what I've heard. But no, I think it can absorb all kinds of change. It's a pretty sturdy institution. And also, I think more likely is that they would get more business, and I support that.
Adam would like more details on the donuts, please, that George makes.
They're big. That's all I can tell you.
Can you give us a visual on how
round,
big?
Hole in the middle. They're sort of
dad jokes from Chris Colin, folks.
Right. Well, I joke because I'm not a donutologist. I really don't know. I don't really like to eat donuts. I find them filling. These are not the kind of light Krispy Kreme kind that you can have one and get on with your day. This will like sort of knock you out for a minute. But they're surprisingly good.
Oh my God, Ronnie G is here. Ronnie, are you Ronnie G from the article? If so, welcome. It's great to see you. Thank you for coming. Okay, back to donutology.
Oh, hey, look at that. Hi,
That's
Ronnie.
awesome. Thanks for coming, Ronnie.
Yeah, no, the donuts, since I don't trust myself as a donut taster, I did ask friends and my wife to weigh in, and they said these are surprisingly good donuts. Can that suffice as a donut review? Do I need to say more? They're,
No, I mean, if you're not into donuts, that's on you. And I mean, I feel like
I accept it.
we'll be reviewing that when thinking about future pitches from Chris
All right.
Colin. Did you take your, oh, that's a great question, actually. Did you take your family? I know, in fact, Chris read a short part of this at an event we had at City Lights bookstore. He read from this article, and his wife and kids were in the audience, which was so great to see. Have you taken your family to the Silver Crest to dine? Is it family friendly?
Yes. I've taken I think I've taken all of them at various points. And they're so sweet. I mean, yeah, giving donuts to my kids, like refusing payment, no matter how, yeah, they're just incredibly sweet there. It's a great, and I know other people who take their kids there for breakfast. Um, if your kids do gymnastics at the little Bayshore gymnastics place, then pop on over. I recommend that.
Kevin asks, do you know if Anthony Bourdain ever went there? I guess a larger question is, has there been much publicity about the Silver Crest? And I mean, has anyone else kind of stumbled upon it and said, oh my gosh, the bacon is incredible at this random place in San Francisco?
No, I don't think Bourdain went there. I bet you a donut he would have loved it. It's just it's a little too far off the beaten path. Um, it's not the kind of place you stumble past if you're just visiting San Francisco.
Sure.
You got to be living here. But oh yeah, I mean, if it was anywhere else in town, I'm sure it would have changed more. It would have been a little more sort of subject to changes in the culture or whatever. It's not as protected as it is now. It wouldn't be as protected as it is now, but it would have gotten a lot of publicity.
I wonder, I mean, it's interesting that you say that. I wonder if its location on Bayshore, which there was, I mean, I referred to it as the outskirts of town. I don't know that it necessarily is technically on the outskirts, but it is in more of an industrial area of San Francisco. I do you think that location, that kind of very specific, it's not in North Beach, it's not in down to, the Union Square area, has allowed Silvercrest to maintain its DeLorean of time travelness?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's astute. I think it's yeah, it's like if you're sort of a recluse, a geographical recluse, you're more likely to sort of remain yourself. You're not going to be, impacted by the various cross currents of being right in the middle of the mission or whatever.
I want to end on a happy note, but I've got to ask, George and Nina are getting older and dealing with, health issues that come with that.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for the Silver Crest?
Um,
I mean, just like, logistically.
yeah. Here's how I will answer that. Beth, if you or I were running the Silvercrest, we at that age would probably be concerned about succession. Um, George, I'm going to end this on a happy note. George has been saying, as long as I've known him, he's been saying he's going to live to 149. He doesn't say it jokingly. His plan is to live to 149. So maybe he knows something we don't.
Okay. And everyone, okay.
I mean, if you want a serious answer,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not something that my sense was that there were two competing agendas there. I think George wants to do it forever. It is his, they have a home in San Francisco, but that's really just a place where they sleep. Like the Silvercrest is their home. And he's just like, why would I stop? Whenever I ask him this very question, he points to the sign, we never close. He doesn't want to ever leave it. But, the sense I got from others is that the rest of his family might be eager for a next stage.
Yeah.
But there's not an obvious heir to the place.
Well, Chris, this article is, I don't have favorites, but this is one of them. And it's beautifully written and it is magical. And I'm glad that you leaned away from getting too reporterly and leaned into the magic, because it is just a treat to read again and again. And I hope that as Ronnie said, he saw it last week and it's beautifully and accurately written. So I hope we all raise a donut in tribute. And in fact, if anyone wants to do an Alta meetup, I am down and we'll join you for eggs and bacon and donuts. I will gladly eat more than one donut. Chris, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone else, before you leave, next week is Alta Live Booksellers Roundtable. We have 3 booksellers from Alibi Bookshop in Vallejo, Octavia's Bookshelf in Pasadena, and Green Apple in San Francisco, California. Each of them will come with picks of books that are great for everyone on your list, from What to Buy Your Boss to What to Buy the Surly Teenager that you barely know that will be at your Christmas party. History, fiction, whatever you want. We're going to go through the list with 3 really fantastic book buyers and booksellers. That's next week. Whatever the first Wednesday in December is, December 3rd, here at Alta Live, 12:30 p.m. We'll send you a link to this, Chris's article, and anything else that pops up later this afternoon. Chris Colin, you're awesome. And everyone else, happy holidays. Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.